done. Love that he just goes with fly. As promised, head coach of FGCU's men's basketball team. They're practicing. They're going to play. The head is still shaved. Coach Michael Fly. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good, fellas. How are you?
Doing fine. First off, how has the bald look gone over? We know you did it for charity. We talked to you a week before you were going to do it. All right. First things first, you have a young child. All right. Is the child, scared to death, or did that go okay? Is the wife letting you stay in the room, or are you elsewhere? I mean, how's it going over?
So he was a little freaked out on day one. He wasn't really sure what to make of it. She was nice at best, I would say, with her comments. I thought Lily did such a phenomenal job that after about a week, I decided to take the clippers to it myself and walk downstairs. And Heather was not so thrilled again. The next time I let her jump in on the job, so I'm starting to figure it out doing it myself. I thought that Lily did such a fantastic job, I'd go with it for a while.
Well, I figured you'd go with it until you at least played your first game. I mean, let's be honest. Coaches are as superstitious as anybody. I figured you'd go with it and see whether or not there were wins in that haircut.
I like it. Maybe we'll go a 3 to 4 game sample size.
There you go.
All right, I see that we have a schedule out now. Just give people a little rundown. Looks like we're doing a conference-only thing. Is that the way this is going to, at least for the moment, is this what we're having for 2021? Because there's been so much going on. We're trying to keep track of 60 sports that are being played at once right now. We didn't know when you guys would play. Just give us the little, 60-second Reader's Digest version of what the hell's going on with FGCU men's basketball right now.
So that's a great question. Our conference schedule is posted, but we will be playing a non-conference schedule. The plan as of now is to tip on November 25th. I cannot comment on official games and dates yet because we're still trying to make sure that we've got all that in line. As you can imagine, there's teams around the country losing games day by day. We've been very fortunate in that our non-conference schedule has not been affected very much. We've just had to move a couple of dates around. So we are going to play as close to a full schedule that you can play and still lose 2 weeks of the season, starting on the 25th instead of the 10th. But we are going to throw the ball in the air on November 25th, and we're excited about it.
Which is the day before Thanksgiving. There's a maximum number of games you're allowed to play, though, right? Like you've got 16 conference games. What's the most number of non-conference you're allowed to play? Is this a 25-game season, 27? What's the maximum number you're allowed to play?
So, we're obviously the NCAA has changed some rules based on COVID. I believe the max we're at right now is 27 that you can play, I believe. Now, the rules change a little bit if you're in an MTE, an exempt tournament, but I believe the NCAA's passed a 27 maximum rule. So we're going to get as close to that as we possibly can based on what we already had in place before all this started.
Coach, we get a little grief from time to time when we have you on. People don't think we're hard enough on you. You and David are good friends. I've still been trying to find time when you and I can get a drink together, but then COVID came and, little kids and all those things. But we all get along really well. David loves the program. We would do anything we have to support the program. But facts are facts. This is a big year for you, for where you are, for where FGCU is. How much more, I don't know if it's added pressure, added problems, but COVID, you're already preparing for 1 year and you already know what's ahead of you to try to get this team ready. How difficult has it been with what you've had to undergo and the great unknown that's been the 2020-2021 season?
To be honest with you, Mark, it's been the opposite of that for us. When you take over a program that is in rebuild mold, and that's what we took over, losing 5 starters, losing 5 guys that signed pro contracts, And we never had to do that in this program. Even when I got here, Sherwood Brown, Chase Feeler, Christoph Baradell, Eddie Murray, they were sitting right here in the program. When Coach Dooley took the program over, we were coming off a Sweet 16. So we had never been down the road of losing everything from a numbers and contribution standpoint and having to hit reset. So the expectations when you take over a program that has had the kind of success we've had are going to be high, and we expect that. But anytime you take over a situation where you know that the roster is in flux, you know that you've lost multiple players in the program that are going to go down as some of the best players in the history of the program, it's always going to be year 3, 4, and 5. It's never going to be year 1 and 2. You want to win as much as you can win. I also think it's really, really important that in year 1 and year 2, you establish your culture, you establish your standards, you establish the things that you make hard decisions in year 1 and 2, so you reap the benefits in year 3, 4, and 5. And so instead of it was very stressful for 2 years when, we were walking out to games with no returning experience, no returning starters, guys that we had no idea, how they were going to perform. I'm actually in a fantastic mental state because when I leave practice every day, there's 5 guys that have been starters in this program that I know what I'm going to get every time they step on the floor. There's Eli Abaya that averaged almost a double-double in the OVC. There's Dom London, who was a junior college All-American last year. There's Franco Miller, who started an SEC game and played for Kermit Davis, who's one of the better coaches in the country. There's 3 incoming freshmen that, not to put pressure on those guys, but I would say is one of the better freshman classes we've had since I've been here in the program. So for 2 years, we were walking into practice day in and day out, hoping that guys performed, hoping that guys developed. We just didn't know what we had day in and day out. Now there's a consistent effort. There's a consistent belief in what we're doing. But more than anything, there's just experience. And so the vibe of the program is back to being what it was before, which is older, more experienced returners. We now have older guys that are passing on lessons to the younger guys. And for 2 years, there was no older guys to pass those lessons on that had been in the pro. So COVID has been tough. We're working with a sports psychologist and leadership coach to try to help us through some of those situations. I think having staff continuity, having the same coaches here for 3 years is huge. That rarely happens in Division I basketball. So we're actually extremely excited and really, really comfortable with our group and roster.
If I can ask you a couple of quick COVID questions. Is everybody wear a mask on the court? Like, are the players practicing with masks on? I mean, how hard has it been? And if you're not now, I'm guessing during the summer months when guys were even just getting together on their own, when the Raptors trained there, the NBA protocols were you couldn't have more than 4 guys on the floor at any one time. Before that, they each had their own rim. I mean, just how difficult, strange, whatever words you want to come up with, has it been just getting to this point? And I know officially practice starts today. Is it a normal practice? Will you do practice today the way you've done practice for your 9 previous years here?
So those are all good questions. So a couple of things just from a protocol standpoint. Anyone that is not a player on the court competing is masked throughout practice. If you are playing in practice and you are not hurt and you're competing, they are not masked during practice. So it's very similar to the NBA. When you're competing, you're not masked because we're testing regularly. If you're hurt and you're not practicing that day, if you're a coach, athletic trainer, if you're a manager, everybody's masked the entire time. There are some programs that are trying to mask while they play. You get into some breathing issues with that. You get into, if you see a lot of pictures around the country, you'll see guys have a mask on, but it's below their mouth and nose. So, does the mask do anything at that point? So we're following the protocols that have been put in place by the athletic department and by the NCAA and based on standards here in the state of Florida with local officials. The only difference in today and every other practice that I've had in 9 years will be that, I've got a mask on the entire practice, which I think for some coaches might be a challenge. Our guys probably like that I can be a little loud from time to time. Being muffled is probably a positive thing for some of them. But it's been a difficult transition in this regard. Exactly what you said. When we first got back to campus and we were reintroducing sport, was kind of the terminology, resocialization of sport with the NCAA. We were not doing any group workouts. They were doing one ball, one basket, one player. You could only come in the gym with guys that you lived with. And therefore, God forbid somebody pops positive, then maybe that apartment gets shut down, but the entire program doesn't get shut down. So we're basically, asking 18 to 22-year-olds to live like none of us live from 18 to 22, to be masked at all times unless they're in the bathroom by themselves or in their room by themselves. We have a team rule of nobody comes into your apartment that doesn't live in your apartment, just to try to, minimize as many risks as possible. But we know, this virus obviously is undefeated to this point, unfortunately. So we just try to make sure that we minimize as many risks as possible.
I just want everybody for a second to think about what Coach Fly just said right there. We're asking not just 18 to 22-year-olds, but we're asking 18 to 20-year-old college athletes to not let anyone in their apartment who doesn't live there. Pause and think what that really means. And think of the commitment that these kids are having to make to just play college basketball right now. It's quite incredible. And the other thing that I was reading today, Coach, and I'm guessing it applies to you, you mentioned your student managers, but there's more to your program than your coaches and the players. There's a lot of people who help out. And because of COVID, if I understand this right, managers can't be out. They've kind of hang in the locker room. So just running a practice is probably a little bit more like a high school practice than a normal D1 college practice, isn't it?
It is. We've actually had to limit the amount of walk-ons and managers that we have. Normally we have multiple walk-ons, multiple managers that are helping us throughout practice, that are traveling with us to help us on the road. It's very much Coach Joey Cantins is in the ice tub just about every day after practice because he's no longer coaching. He's now back to playing days because we have to throw him into practice with less bodies based on lack of walk-ons and managers. So everything is condensed. Our travel party is going to be smaller. Guys can only use the locker room in very small groups, and they have to be masked the entire time they're in the locker room unless they're in the shower. They have to have a coach's supervision if they're going to use the locker room. I mean, there's all kinds of protocols that I think Mike Estes here in our administration, Ken Cavanaugh, Nicole Neal have done an incredible job of giving us protocols. The hard part is following all the protocols because, as you said, we're asking 18 to 22-year-olds, which, I know you guys were probably angels from 18 to 22, but,
Right.
I might have made a decision or two that I might not make now at that time. So we're asking these guys to live, incredibly disciplined at all times, which is extremely challenging. So I commend our guys that, knock on wood, we've gotten to this point without having to shut the program down. But, we say this every day, guys, we're one bad decision or one day of, forgetting to put a mask on in a situation from not playing basketball.
Coach, and in the limited experience that I have traveling the country in these last few weeks involved in some of the network broadcasts, our attitude has been, yeah, this is a royal pain in the what, all the stuff that we're jumping through hoops as well. We're being tested all the time, et cetera. But we're working, and man, are we thankful to be working. And basically we're like, hey, whatever you need us to do, we'll do. I'm wondering if the players, and Mark just detailed, think about what it is that we're asking 18 to 22-year-olds to do that, come on, let's face it, none of us listening right now would done.
Do 20 years ago. We'd never have done ourselves.
But in a way, though, coaches are always trying to find out how much do the players really want to play. I mean, you guys are. You do it in many different ways, but you're always trying to find out, so how much does this guy really want to play? I would think in a very perverted way, COVID has shown a lot of coaches and a lot of athletes, actually. So how much do you want it? Because if you're going to have to go through that you're never been asked to go through before, and you're probably not going to ask to go through again. And it's all just to play the sport that you so-called love. And I would think in a strange way that you're finding out just how much these guys want to play.
Yeah, so David, I would tell you, there's been very few positives through COVID, but I would tell you one of the positives is, basketball was taken away from these guys for a long time. We had multiple players that, depending on what part of the country they lived in, the rims on outdoor courts, on the blacktop were taken down, so they couldn't do anything with the basketball outside of dribble in their driveway. So I think there's a hunger there right now that maybe we always haven't had. When I say we, I mean coaches as a whole, just to get back in the gym and be excited to be in the gym, because something they love that they took for granted was taken away from them. Another benefit that let me knock on all the wood I can find in this office, but we're going into practice today very healthy. Which we have not experienced in this program in the last few years, but never in my career have I walked into practice feeling like we had a team fully healthy, fully ready to go at this time of the year. And you wonder if some of that is because they weren't on campus all summer practicing. So there's some unintended positives, I think, that have come out of this. The hard part too is, obviously you can be following every protocol, doing everything perfect, and you can get COVID. And
Totally.
so I think we have to be careful as coaches, administrators, fans, not to demonize somebody if they do contract a virus, because that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to play or that they haven't followed protocols. Unfortunately, this virus is a horrible thing across the board. So it's a very delicate balance, because I'm constantly sending them articles on other programs being shut down, on teenagers getting arrested for hosting huge house parties. I mean, anytime I can find something in the media, which is easy to find right now, about COVID, I'm shooting it off to every player in an individual text message just as a daily reminder. But again, there's a balance there on if you do have a guy pop positive, we don't want to be pointing the finger saying, you've ruined the program, when he may have been doing everything completely right and unfortunately contracted the virus.
Coach, on the way this football season has started, and I bring this up to get to basketball, we've had a lot of injuries. It seems that they've been unprecedented because there was no preseason. And to the part of what you just kind of to tie that in with basketball, have you had to approach conditioning a lot differently than ever before, with just saying, like you said, they've not been, there's no hoop this summer. They've not been playing, and you're healthy. So to try to do the best you can never avoid injuries. They just happen. It's dumb luck in a lot of ways. But I would think the way you start the year could help your luck. Have you had to approach the conditioning aspect, or will you have to approach the conditioning aspect a little differently and maybe at a little slower pace than in previous years?
Yeah, we have done it differently. So the first difference, Mark, is, normally throughout our careers as coaches, we want those guys in the gym as much as possible, and we're constantly trying to get them in the gym. And, we encourage them to play pickup as much as possible so they can get in basketball shape and they can get a feel for each other's games and their rhythms on the court. So unlike other years, they were not allowed to play pickup this year, because there were times throughout the year, for two reasons. They couldn't play pickup based on COVID protocols. Even once we got to the point that in theory they could have played pickup from a COVID standpoint, I didn't want guys that haven't played basketball all summer running up and down in an unsupervised environment and somebody tears something, just because they want to play. So again, from a positive standpoint, these guys have been chomping at the bit. When we're finishing practice, even after, a long day of workouts, coach, can we play pickup? Can we play pickup? No, so we've kind of kept them at bay in a good way. The other difference is normally we're doing a preseason conditioning program that we're doing running on different surfaces. We're doing challenge courses, for lack of a better word, just to kind of keep things, in a different frame of mind and keep them engaged. Well, in talking with Nicole Neal, our head athletic trainer, and Randy Popple, our strength conditioning coach, we actually did. We've only done stuff on a basketball court and in the weight room this year, because when you start introducing different surfaces, a football field, a track, the sand, doing a beach workout, if there's ever a time a guy's going to get hurt because they haven't been in that kind of condition, it's now. So we have changed a lot of what we're doing. Very little to no pickup. And again, we're basically playing guys into shape and running sprints during practice or workouts on a basketball court with basketball shoes versus the stuff that you would do on other surfaces in most years.
I know this is above your pay grade. Right now, is the plan fans? Is the plan to at least have some? I mean, and also, does this first have to come and clear through the conference before it comes down to each individual school? But right now, what is the vibe that you're getting about fans at games?
That is above my pay grade, but I'll tell you, just from being here, obviously, as part of the athletic department and an important piece with men's basketball, it's my expectation that we will have fans in attendance at games. I do not know the number on that percentage that will be allowed in the arena, but I expect us to have fans at each and every home game this year. I just don't know yet, what that will look like from a numbers standpoint.
And finally, want to ask you about, it could come down later today, maybe tomorrow. Apparently, the waiver that was given to fall college athletes is also going to be given to winter sport athletes, in which essentially every kid that's in your program this year is not going to count against their eligibility. And while that sounds like, wow, that's great, it's not like they increase the number of scholarships you're allowed to give. So, if kids are going to stay an extra year longer, in theory, that's less kids that you can bring in on the back end to replace them. Your thought just on, hey, winter sport athletes getting a COVID year, a mulligan year, if you will, and good thing for the FGCUs of the world, or probably more problematic than the NCAA realizes?
Well, that's a great question, David. I actually had a message into our compliance officer to make sure that I fully understand, what's being put on the table. I saw Jeff Goodman saying that I guess, that it could be still up for reconsideration. So I don't know where it's landed from an official done deal standpoint. But I think in that you make a decision that none of us have been through before, there's unintended consequences and unintended positive things that sometimes result too. So I'm not sure that we'll fully know what that will look like until we go through that. I don't know. I don't understand how that works from obviously we're recruiting players right now in the fall with the expectation that we have 4 seniors graduating. So if a player were to sign in the fall and then a graduating senior decides to do another year, how does that impact? How does that impact grad transfer situations across the country? The assumption is that the one-time transfer rule is also going to pass if you follow that. So it's going to be a very interesting set of circumstances.
Well, you're being kind.
I don't think any of us have gotten that far mentally. I say this somewhat jokingly, but we're still trying to figure out how to get on the floor and how to get a non-conference schedule out to the public. So I haven't gotten into that subject too much. I will tell you, I think that, going back to the question about the year and pressure, I will tell you that's why I think it's important to have a group that's bought in, that's on the same page, that's together, because you hope that, if you've got the pieces in place for the long-term health of a program as coaches, you hope that, maybe any negative consequences that would come out of that maybe aren't going to be as big of a problem for your program as it might be some others. But that'll be, really interesting to see how that plays out, if that is set in stone. And also, again, I think the biggest question is just going to become, how does that impact scholarship counts? And how does that impact not just outgoing seniors, but incoming freshmen? Again, in addition to the one-time transfer rule.
Coach, 42 days before the start of the college basketball season. I think that maybe a little longer than what you originally thought, but it's got to be nice that there's a number and a countdown and that we're getting closer and closer to playing ball. As always, we appreciate your time. Anytime you can give it to us. Best of luck. Have fun with the practices. Keep that head shaved for at least the first week of the season.
Right. Got to see
if we can get 2 early wins out of that.
Totally. Got to find out what kind of streak the haircut has in it.
So what I think I'm hearing is that I can use you guys as a buffer between Heather and I when she decides she's not so fond of me taking the Clippers.
Hey,
good.
Honey,
I needed an excuse. I got one.
This is what you say. Honey, you got to take one for the team here. This could have a winning streak in it. All right. Sorry.
All you need is that little scene out of Bull Durham.
Right.
And don't with the winning streak.
Right. Yep. Sorry. And besides, you look right at her and go, hey, we got 2 weeks into the season. If it ain't working, I'll just let it grow. It's 2 weeks. Come on.
Now, I'll remind you guys, she's a prosecutor, so I'm going to go ahead and send her both of your guys' cell phone numbers. Best of luck arguing with her.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Your wife.
Listen,
I can argue all I want. I have no chance of losing this argument. You're the only one that can lose it.
Coach, she's a prosecutor. We're sports talk show hosts. We'll take our chances.